From a woman who ended the life of her loved one for $400,000 to a gang member responsible for the tragic loss of an innocent couple, these are the shocking stories of Black women sentenced to capital punishment in the U.S., and the stories behind them might surprise you. Patricia Blackmon was born in 1969, and at one point made what seemed like a hopeful decision. She adopted a young girl named Dominiqua Bryant, intending to give her a better life. But behind closed doors, that promise turned into something far more troubling. In May 1999, emergency responders were called to Blackmon's home. Inside, they found Dominiqua unresponsive. The young girl had suffered multiple injuries, broken bones, deep bruises, and clear signs of long-term harm. The extent of her injuries suggested this wasn't a one-time incident, but something that had been happening for a while. Under Alabama law, the intentional harm of a child under the age of 14 is treated with the utmost seriousness. Patricia Blackmon was arrested and charged accordingly. During the trial, prosecutors presented detailed evidence of the mistreatment Dominiqua had endured. The defense tried to lessen the charges, but the evidence was too strong. In April 2002, Patricia Blackmon was found guilty and was sentenced to capital punishment. The next case brings us to someone whose deepest desires led to a tragedy no one saw coming. Linda Anita Carty was born in 1958 on the island of St. Kitts. Before her life took a darker turn, she worked as a primary school teacher and later studied pharmacology at the University of Houston. During her time there, she also served as an informant for the DEA, helping identify illegal substance traffickers, earning a reputation as someone who worked with the law, not against it. But in May 2001, that image shattered. Carty planned a disturbing plan involving 25-year-old Joanna Rodriguez and her newborn son, Ray Cabrera. With help from 3 men she recruited, Carty arranged for the group to break into Rodriguez's Houston apartment. They tied up both Rodriguez and her partner, then took off with the young mother and her baby. The child was later found safe. But tragically, Rodriguez was discovered lifeless in the trunk of a car. She had been suffocated. What could have pushed someone to such an act? Investigators uncovered a possible motive. Carty had suffered multiple miscarriages and was reportedly desperate to have a child. That desperation, they believed, led to a plan that ended in tragedy. Carty's trial started in February 2002. Testimonies from her co-defendants stated that Carty was the one who arranged everything. The defense argued that Carty was framed by the co-defendants. They suggested that her past work as a DEA informant could have motivated them to blame her. Despite these claims, the jury found Carty guilty. After her conviction, Carty was sentenced to the most severe penalty allowed by law, making her one of the few women facing such a sentence in Texas. Over the years, she has continued to claim she is innocent. She has filed several appeals, arguing that she did not get a fair trial. However, these appeals have not been successful, and as of 2025, she remains in the legal process, awaiting further developments. Next, we travel to Florida, where a mother would risk it all for her daughter. Tina Lasonya Brown was born in 1970 and was a mother of 2. With no major criminal history, she lived a relatively quiet life. On March 24, 2010, Brown, her 16-year-old daughter Brittany Miller, and their neighbor Heather Lee made one disturbing decision that changed everything. The victim was 19-year-old Audriana Zimmerman, who had reportedly been in a conflict with Brown's daughter. Tensions had been rising, but no one could have predicted how far things would go. The trio invited Zimmerman to Brown's trailer, claiming they wanted to talk things out and make peace. But once she arrived, the situation turned dark. Brown used a stun gun on Zimmerman, immobilizing her. The group then gagged her and placed her in the trunk of a car. They drove to a remote wooded area. There, things escalated even further. Brown used a crowbar to strike Zimmerman multiple times. Then, they poured gasoline on her and set her on fire, leaving her alone and critically injured. The legal process moved quickly. On June 21, 2012, a jury found Brown guilty of first-degree offense. During the penalty phase, Brown's family, including her sons and other relatives, shared details about her life and character. Despite this, the jury recommended a severe penalty. Judge Gary Burgosh followed the jury's recommendation and sentenced Brown on September 28, 2012. After her conviction, Brown tried to challenge her sentence. However, in 2020, the Florida Supreme Court upheld her conviction and sentence, rejecting her appeals. As of 2025, Tina Lasonya Brown remains in prison. But what happens when familial bonds become the battleground for cruelty? Tiffany Nicole Moss was born in 1983, but it wasn't until 2013 that her name became tied to one of the most heartbreaking cases in Georgia's recent history, the tragic passing of her 10-year-old stepdaughter, Imani Gabrielle Moss. Tiffany had married Emmon Moss, Imani's biological father, and the family lived in Lawrenceville, Georgia. Not much is known about Tiffany's early life, but court records revealed that she had a prior conviction from 2004 for child mistreatment, hinting at a troubling past that may have gone unnoticed for too long. In 2013, the situation inside the Moss household took a devastating turn. Tiffany repeatedly denied Imani food, isolating her in a bedroom and refusing to meet her most basic needs. Over time, Imani's condition worsened, and on October 28, 2013, she passed away, malnourished and weighing just 32 pounds. What followed was just as disturbing. In a desperate effort to hide what had happened, Tiffany and Emmon burned Imani's body in a trash can and threw it away in a dumpster. Why would a stepmother commit something so horrific? The answer remains unclear, but her previous conviction and the long-term mistreatment of Imani suggest a history of resentment and cruelty that ended in tragedy. Tiffany was arrested and charged with multiple offenses, including cruelty to children. During her trial, she chose to represent herself, despite concerns about her mental health due to reported brain damage. Throughout the trial, she remained largely silent, offering no defense or explanation. The trial began in April 2019, and the prosecution presented evidence showing prolonged neglect and harmful behavior. After less than 3 hours of deliberation, the jury found Tiffany guilty on all charges. She was handed over capital punishment. What are your thoughts on this case? Let us know in the comments below. Antoinette Renee Frank was born in 1971 in Opelousas, Louisiana. She joined the New Orleans Police Department, NOPD, in 1993, even though there were concerns about her honesty and mental health. The department was short on staff and wanted to bring in more diversity, so they ignored these warning signs and hired her. At work, Frank's behavior made people uncomfortable. She often seemed unsure of herself and sometimes acted unpredictably. Her supervisors even thought about sending her back for more training. Despite this, she still received Officer of the Month awards from local organizations, which made her situation even more confusing. Frank got involved with Rogers Lacaze, who was known for dealing illegal substances. Their relationship was both personal and illegal, leading to several unlawful activities. On March 4, 1995, they decided to target the Kim An restaurant, which was run by the Vu family. Frank sometimes worked there as a security officer when she was off duty. That night, after the restaurant closed, Frank used a stolen key to get inside. Officer Ronald A. Williams II was working there as a security guard. Lacaze shot Williams from behind, leaving him unable to move before firing again. Frank then approached Ha and Quang Vu, demanding money. When they couldn't give her what she wanted, she shot Ha 3 times and Quang 6 times. 2 other family members, Chow and Quoc Vu, managed to hide and survive. What would make a police officer turn against the very people she was supposed to protect? Frank's reasons seemed to be personal and financial. She believed Officer Williams was not paying her fairly for her security shifts at the restaurant, and this fueled her resentment. After the event, Frank came back to the scene, pretending to be a responding officer. It seemed like she wanted to make sure there were no witnesses left. However, Vu recognized her and told the authorities. She was arrested immediately. Her trial started on September 5, 1995. Even though her lawyers called several witnesses, they did not have any of them testify. The jury took only 22 minutes to find her guilty on all charges. The next day, after 45 minutes of discussion, they decided on the most severe punishment. On October 20th, 1995, she was officially sentenced and sent to the Louisiana Correctional Institute for Women. What happened after that? In 2007, the Louisiana Supreme Court reviewed her case and upheld her sentence with a 5-2 ruling. Chief Justice Pascal Calogero disagreed with the decision, saying there were problems with how she was sentenced and that she didn't have enough expert help during her trial. As of 2025, Antoinette Frank remains in prison, the only woman in Louisiana facing the most severe punishment. But the next case? It's unlike anything before. Carlette was born in 1960 to Carlisle S. Parker Sr. and Ann G. Parker. She was the middle daughter in the family. Her childhood was filled with painful experiences, as she endured repeated mistreatment over several years. Despite this, she worked hard to build a stable life and found a career in home health care. She dedicated herself to assisting elderly clients, most of whom were white. One of those clients was 86-year-old Alice Covington, a frail widow living in Morrisville, just outside Raleigh. Over time, Alice grew to trust Carlette, and their relationship deepened. But behind the scenes, Carlette had other intentions. In early 1998, Carlette started withdrawing money from Alice's bank account. By the time Alice noticed, around $44,000 was missing. When Alice confronted her about the transactions, things took a dark turn. Investigators believe that, in a moment of panic and desperation, Carlette harmed Alice, leading to her passing. The medical report showed clear signs of a struggle: bruises on Alice's legs and ankles, traces of pepper spray on her clothes, and possible burns that suggested a stun device was used. Carlette was taken into custody and charged with serious offenses. When the trial began in March 1999, prosecutors described her as someone who took advantage of an elderly woman's trust for financial gain. They painted a picture of a calculated plan: building a friendship with Alice, gaining access to her finances, and then trying to cover her tracks. The defense, however, pointed to Carlette's painful past. They argued that her traumatic childhood could have played a role in shaping her decisions. Did Carlette's difficult past influence her actions? It doesn't justify what happened, but it adds context to her choices. After careful deliberation, the jury found Carlette guilty of both charges. On June 22, 1999, she received the most severe punishment allowed by law. The case not only highlighted issues of trust and financial exploitation, but also sparked discussions about race and gender, as Carlette, a black woman, was convicted in a case involving a white victim. Carlette Sabrina Parker's cold act of betrayal leads us into another Texas story. Up next, Melissa Elizabeth Lucio's long legal battle questions whether the system sometimes gets it wrong. Melissa Elizabeth Lucio was born in 1971 in Texas. Her life took a difficult path, making her the first Hispanic woman in the state to face the most severe punishment under the law. Her story is filled with hardship, accusations, and a long fight for justice. Melissa grew up in a tough environment. She experienced extreme poverty and suffered from physical and emotional mistreatment. By the time she was 38, she had 14 children. Her partner, Robert Alvarez, was a truck driver who was often away, leaving Melissa to care for their children on her own. On February 17, 2007, a terrible incident happened. Melissa's 2-year-old daughter, Mariah, became unresponsive at their home in Harlingen, Texas. Paramedics arrived and found her cold to the touch. Despite their efforts, she could not be saved. Authorities immediately suspected mistreatment because Mariah had visible bruises and had suffered an arm injury earlier. However, Melissa said that Mariah had fallen down a flight of stairs 2 days before. Melissa was questioned for 5 hours under extreme pressure. She first insisted she was innocent, but as the interrogation continued, She was pushed into giving a false statement saying, "I guess I did it." This was later used against her, even though she said she was forced into saying it. During her trial, prosecutors portrayed her as a mother who hurt her children. A medical examiner stated that Mariah's injuries matched mistreatment. However, other medical experts later challenged this. They pointed out that Mariah had a blood clotting disorder, which could explain the bruising. The prosecution also brought up Melissa's past, including previous accusations of mistreating her children, to convince the jury she was responsible. Even though there was no direct proof, she was found guilty in 2008 and given the harshest sentence. Over time, new evidence came to light. Experts explained that Mariah's passing was likely due to the fall, not mistreatment. It was also discovered that important evidence had been hidden during the trial, and that some of the testimony was incorrect. In 2024, Judge Arturo Nelson ruled that Melissa was actually innocent, saying that no reasonable jury would have found her guilty with the new information. He recommended that her conviction and sentence be overturned. Now, the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals must decide whether to dismiss the case or allow a new trial. As of April 2025, Melissa is still waiting for a final decision, as the legal system reviews her case once again. Erica Yvonne Sheppard was born on September 1, 1973, in Bay City, Texas, into a difficult environment. Her early years were filled with neglect and mistreatment. By the time she was 19, Erica was already a mother to 3 children. She had no job and was stuck in a harmful relationship. Her partner, James R. Dickerson, had a history of illegal activities. Together, they made a choice that would change their lives forever. On June 30, 1993, in Houston, Texas, Erica and James planned to steal a car. They saw Marilyn Sage Mager, a 43-year-old real estate agent, carrying clothes into her apartment. They followed her inside, intending to take her vehicle. But things quickly escalated. Marilyn tried to fight back and pleaded for them to stop, but the situation became even worse. Marilyn suffered deep cuts to her neck, was struck on the head with a heavy statue, and had a plastic bag placed over her face. Erica and James then drove away in Marilyn's 1993 Mazda 626, which was later found abandoned in Bay City, Texas. What led them to do this? Was it desperation, their difficult pasts, or a moment of poor judgment? While their exact reasons are unknown, their troubled lives and immediate struggles likely played a major role. Erica's trial started in March 1995. Even though her court-appointed lawyers fought for her, she was found guilty of theft and causing harm that led to a loss of life. The jury sentenced her to the most severe punishment allowed by law. Over the years, her legal team has filed multiple appeals, challenging different parts of her trial and sentence. In July 2020, the Fifth Circuit Court reviewed one of these appeals, showing how long and complicated these cases can be. Erica remains in a Texas prison, confined to a single cell for more than 30 years. Her case has caught the attention of human rights groups. In July 2021, the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights, AIR, took action in her favor, raising concerns about the effects of such extreme isolation on her mental health. Heather Leavell-Keaton was born in 1988 and became involved with John Joseph DeBlaze, who had 2 young children, Natalie and Chase, from a previous relationship. The family lived in Mobile County, Alabama. Over time, Leavell-Keaton's relationship with the children took a dark turn, as she treated them with increasing cruelty and neglect. Between 2009 and 2010, Leavell-Keaton and DeBlaze subjected Natalie and Chase to extreme mistreatment. Reports indicate that she harmed the children by secretly adding toxic substances to their food. In addition, she was physically rough with them, making their home life unbearable. Natalie lost her life on March 4, 2010. She was forcefully restrained in a way that prevented her from breathing. Her body was later left in a wooded area in Alabama. A few months later, on June 20, 2010, Chase met a similar fate. His remains were eventually found in Mississippi. As time passed, the absence of the children raised suspicions, leading to an investigation. In December 2010, authorities arrested both Leavell-Keaton and DeBlaze. After extensive searching, investigators found the children's remains in separate locations. Leavell-Keaton's trial started on May 8, 2015, in Mobile County Circuit Court. By May 27, 2015, the jury determined that she was responsible for Chase's passing in a way that warranted the most severe legal consequences, while also finding her responsible for Natalie's passing, though with a slightly different legal classification. During sentencing, the jury recommended capital punishment, with 11 out of 12 jurors voting in favor. On August 20, 2015, Judge Rick Stout officially handed down the sentence, which included the maximum penalty for Chase's case and a 20-year prison term for Natalie's. Leavell-Keaton's legal battle did not end there. In October 2020, the Alabama Court of Criminal Appeals overturned the strongest part of her sentence due to procedural issues, ordering a new sentencing hearing. However, by January 2021, her original sentence was reinstated. She continued to appeal, taking her case to the Alabama Supreme Court and then to the U.S. Supreme Court, but both courts declined to overturn her punishment. The U.S. Supreme Court officially rejected her case in June 2023. As of April 2025, Heather Leavell-Keaton remains incarcerated at Julia Tutwiler Prison for Women in Alabama, awaiting the fulfillment of her sentence. Catherine Thompson was born in 1947. She became involved in serious financial trouble that led her down a dark path. Struggling with mounting debt after secretly taking money from her employer, she came up with a plan to have her husband, Melvin Thompson, lose his life so she could collect his $400,000 life insurance payout. Melvin Thompson was 49 years old and owned Kaiser's Service, an auto repair shop in Westwood, Los Angeles County. On June 14, 1990, as he was getting ready to close the shop for the night, someone entered the building and targeted him in the bathroom. He suffered multiple wounds, and his Rolex watch was reported missing, making it seem like a planned theft at first. Investigators started to suspect Catherine's involvement after looking into her financial issues and her ties to Philip Conrad Sanders, the man she arranged to carry out the plan. Her actions after Melvin's passing made authorities even more suspicious. While she was briefly in jail during her husband's funeral, she asked for his jewelry to be brought to her. When she was released, she immediately pawned it to fund a gambling trip to Nevada. On August 29, 1990, Catherine was taken into custody and formally accused of working with someone else to plan and carry out the loss of her husband's life. During her trial, prosecutors laid out evidence showing her financial struggles and the steps she took to make her plan happen. Meanwhile, her defense team tried to cast doubt on the reliability of witnesses and argued that the evidence was not solid enough. However, the jury reached a decision on September 15, 1992, finding her responsible. On June 10, 1993, she was sentenced to capital punishment, as recommended by the jury. When the judge announced it, she showed no visible reaction. As of April 2025, Catherine Thompson remains in custody in California.